Ambassador Keither had delivered ultimatums to 47 worlds before Earth. Each time, the pattern was identical. The primitive species would see his massive fleet witness the holographic destruction of previous defiant civilizations, and within hours they would be begging for mercy. Fear was universal. Survival instinct was absolute. No species had ever refused the Zetherian Empire's offer of servitude over annihilation. Until today. The human space station, orbiting their small blue planet, was laughably primitive. Metal corridors painted white, furniture made of organic materials, displays that required physical touch to operate. It was like stepping backward through 1,000 years of technological evolution. Keither's pale blue skin seemed to glow under the harsh, artificial lighting as he towered over the assembled human leadership. In his ceremonial armor, Secretary General Martinez sat across from him at a simple wooden table. She was unremarkable in every way, middle-aged, gray-haired, wearing a plain blue uniform without decorations. Behind her stood 3 equally forgettable humans, watching him with those strange, calm brown eyes that showed no trace of the terror he expected. Keither activated his personal display system, filling the room with holographic images that had brought 47 civilizations to their knees. The first projection showed the Zetherian fleet approaching Earth, 200 massive warships, each one capable of reducing a city to molten glass. The second image displayed the complete annihilation of Arcturus Prime, a world that had dared to resist just 5 years ago. Every building vaporized, every ship destroyed, every living thing reduced to ash. "I am Ambassador Keither of the Zetherian Empire," he announced, his voice enhanced by artificial amplification that made the walls vibrate. "I bring greetings from Emperor Xanthok, ruler of 7 star systems and conqueror of 47 worlds." The humans watched silently. This was wrong. Usually, by now, representatives would be trembling. Some would faint at the sight of Arcturus Prime's destruction. Others would be frantically calculating surrender terms. These humans simply observed as if they were watching a mildly interesting documentary. "Your species has been judged suitable for incorporation into the Empire," Keither continued, following the script that had never failed. "You will surrender unconditionally within 72 standard galactic hours. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your governments will be dissolved. Your population will be relocated to serve the greater glory of the Empire." He paused. For the begging to begin? Instead, Martinez calmly picked up a ceramic cup, took a sip of some dark liquid, and set it down with a soft clink. "If you refuse," Keither pressed on, his confidence wavering slightly, "your world will share the fate of Arcturus Prime. Total annihilation. Every city burned, every ship destroyed, every human dead. This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum." Room fell silent, except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Martinez leaned back in her chair and looked directly at him with those unnerving, calm eyes. "Thank you for the message, Ambassador," she said in perfect Zetherian. "We decline." Keither blinked hard, certain he had misheard. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "We decline your ultimatum," Martinez repeated, with the same tone she might use. "To refuse a second cup of coffee, Earth will not surrender. Please withdraw your forces from our system within 48 hours, or we will consider your presence an act of war." The silence that followed felt like a physical weight pressing down on the room. In 47 conquests, spanning 3 centuries of military expansion, no species had ever refused after seeing the fleet. The pattern was absolute, universal, unbreakable. Admiral Chen, the tall, silver-haired human behind Martinez, stepped forward with the bearing of someone who had seen real combat. "I'm Admiral Chen, commander of the Earth Defense Force. We understand your capabilities perfectly, Ambassador. The question is, do you understand ours?" Keither's aide whispered urgently in his ear about showing additional recordings, perhaps the vegan massacre or the systematic destruction of the Altair colonies. But something in the human's demeanor stopped him cold. They weren't posturing or bluffing. They genuinely believed they could resist the most powerful military force in the galaxy. These primitives were either completely insane, or they knew something he didn't. Admiral Xander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Eternal Conquest. Watching through reinforced viewports as the rest of the Ninth Fleet took positions around Earth's moon, 200 warships arranged in perfect attack, formation destroyers that dwarfed human space stations, cruisers that could crack continents, and dreadnoughts capable of splitting planets in half. In 3 centuries of military service, Xander had never seen a more one-sided battle about to unfold. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had personally overseen the conquest of 14 worlds. Commander Kethron consulted his tactical displays. Streams of data flowing across holographic screens that processed information faster than most species could think. "All ships in position. Admiral, the humans have deployed their entire fleet to intercept us. 43 vessels total." Xander almost laughed. 43 ships against 200. It was like watching insects prepare to fight a storm. "Show me their fleet composition." The main tactical display, illuminated with detailed scans of the human defensive formation, Xander studied each vessel with the practiced eye of someone who had analyzed enemy capabilities across 7 star systems. What he saw defied every principle of military strategy he had learned. The human ships were pathetic. Simple metal hulls with primitive fusion drives that barely qualified as faster-than-light propulsion. Their largest vessel, something called the Use Indomitable, was smaller than a Zetherian escort frigate. No energy shielding that his sensors could detect, no quantum phase armor, no reality distortion fields. They were essentially flying metal containers with weapons systems that belonged in a museum. "What are they armed with?" Xander asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Kinetic projectiles, mostly," Kethron replied, highlighting weapon signatures. On the display, some missile systems with nuclear warheads, but primitive fission devices. Nothing that could penetrate our shields, and their targeting systems appear to be purely mechanical. Xander shook his head in disbelief. The humans weren't even using energy weapons. They were planning to fight the most advanced military force in the galaxy, with ammunition that physically flew through space and explosives that released energy through atomic splitting. Technology the Zetherian Empire had abandoned centuries ago as hopelessly primitive. "Show me their formation," he ordered. Kethron highlighted the human fleet positions across the tactical grid. "Loose defensive screen positioned between us and their planet. Admiral, they're not concentrating firepower, not using coordinated attack patterns. It's like they've never studied fleet warfare. Either these humans were complete amateurs who had learned military strategy from children's games, or they possessed some capability so advanced that conventional tactics were irrelevant." Given their visible technology level, Xander had to assume it was the former. Yet something nagged at him. Ambassador Keither's report kept echoing in his mind the complete lack of fear in the human leadership, their calm certainty that they would win. No species faced annihilation with such composure unless they had reason for confidence. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Keither's vessel." "Put him through." Keither's image appeared on the screen, and Xander immediately noticed his old friend's troubled expression. In 40 years of military service together, he had never seen Keither look uncertain. Admiral Keither said, "I've completed the ultimatum delivery. The humans refused to surrender." "Of course they refused," Xander replied automatically. "They always refuse initially. What was their reaction when you demonstrated our capabilities?" Keither hesitated, and that pause sent a chill down Xander's spine. "They showed no fear, Admiral." Their leader was completely calm. "She even issued a counter-ultimatum ordering us to withdraw." They ordered the 9th Fleet to withdraw. Xander couldn't hide his amusement. "What did you tell them?" "I explained our military superiority. I showed them the destruction of Arcturus Prime. I made clear what would happen if they resisted." Keither paused again. "They didn't care, Admiral. They acted like they expected to win." Xander studied his friend's face through the transmission. Keither had delivered ultimatums to dozens of civilizations. Nothing should have shaken his confidence this badly. Did they demonstrate any advanced weapons? Show any technology we haven't encountered? "No, sir. Everything appeared primitive." "By our standards," but Admiral ... double quotes, Keither's voice dropped. There was something about them, the way they spoke, the way they carried themselves. It was like they knew something we didn't. Xander looked out at the human fleet, those 43 tiny ships holding position between his massive armada and their homeworld. Either humanity was about to commit the most spectacular suicide in galactic history, or the 9th Fleet was about to encounter something unprecedented. How much time remains on their ultimatum? Deadline, 18 hours, sir. Perfect. That gives us time to achieve optimal firing positions. Xander turned to his weapons officer. Prepare all ships for coordinated bombardment. We'll begin the moment their deadline expires and end this quickly. But as he watched those impossibly calm human ships maintaining their defensive formation, Admiral Xander found himself hoping their confidence was based on stupidity rather than capability. Because if these primitives actually believed they could win, the Ninth Fleet might be about to face something no Zetherian military force had ever encountered. An enemy that refused to surrender and thought it could actually fight back successfully. The countdown to annihilation ticked away with mechanical precision on every display across the Ninth Fleet. 18 hours became 12, then 6, then 1. Admiral Xander watched the human ships maintain their impossible calm, 43. Vessels arranged in a loose defensive screen that violated every principle of military tactics he had studied in 3 centuries of warfare. No species had ever waited for destruction with such serene confidence. Admiral, the communications officer announced, "We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human male in a simple blue uniform standing on what appeared to be the bridge of their flagship. Behind him, Xander could see other humans working at primitive control panels with physical switches and basic display screens. It was like looking into the past. "I'm Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force," the human said calmly. "Am I speaking to the commander of the invading fleet?" "You are," Xander replied, studying this representative of humanity's military leadership. Chen appeared unremarkable, middle-aged, steady brown eyes, the bearing of someone accustomed to command, but nothing that suggested exceptional capability. "I am Admiral Xander of the Ninth Fleet. Your ultimatum deadline has passed. You have one final opportunity to surrender before we destroy your entire civilization." Chen smiled, and something about that expression made Xander's skin crawl. It wasn't the desperate grin of someone facing hopeless odds or the manic expression of someone who had lost their sanity. It was the quiet smile of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. "Admiral, your 48-hour deadline expired 7 minutes ago. You are now illegally occupying our space. I am ordering you to withdraw immediately." Xander felt his patience evaporate. "You're ordering me, human. Do you see my fleet? 200 warships. Each one could sterilize your largest continent. And you're giving me orders?" "Yes," Chen said with that same unsettling calm. "I am, because, unlike you, Admiral, I know what's about to happen." "What's about to happen," Xander snarled, "is the complete annihilation of your species." Chen shook his head slowly. "No, Admiral. What's about to happen is that you're going to attack us, and then you're going to learn why humanity spent so long hiding among the stars." "Hiding?" Xander laughed harshly. "You weren't hiding. You were primitives who couldn't even leave your home system until recently." "We've been watching your empire for 40 years, Admiral Chen said quietly. "We know about every world you've conquered, every species you've enslaved, every genocide you've committed. We've been waiting for someone to threaten Earth so we could stop you." A chill ran down Xander's spine. The human spoke with such absolute certainty that it was deeply unnatural. Any other species would be screaming or begging by now. "You're bluffing," Xander declared. "You have nothing. Primitive ships, primitive weapons, primitive defenses." Admiral Chen said, "I'm going to make this very simple for you. In 60 seconds, I'm going to order my fleet to open fire. When that happens, you'll have exactly one chance to surrender before we destroy every ship in your fleet." Xander stared at the screen in disbelief. "You'll give us a chance to surrender? You have 43 ships against 200, and you think we'll surrender to you?" "I'm hoping you will," Chen replied, "because the alternative is going to be very unpleasant for everyone involved. You're insane." "Maybe," Chen said. "We'll find out in 30 seconds." Xander cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "All ships prepare to fire. Target their flagship first. Let's end this madness. 15 seconds to firing range." Admiral Xander watched the countdown on his tactical display. In moments, this bizarre conversation would be over. The human fleet would be debris floating in space, and Earth would burn like 47 worlds. Before it, Admiral, the sensor officer, called out suddenly, I'm reading strange energy signatures from the human ships. What kind of signatures? I'm not sure, sir. They're unlike anything in our database. Xander frowned. Are they powering weapons? Unknown, sir. The readings don't match any known weapon system. Sir, the weapons officer announced, we're in firing range. Xander looked at the human fleet on his display. Small ships against the might of the Ninth Fleet, it should be slaughter. But Admiral Chen's confidence gnawed at him like a persistent infection. Admiral, the communications officer, spoke up. The humans are transmitting again. Put it through. Chen's face reappeared on the screen. Time's up, Admiral. Last chance. To withdraw, Xander made his decision. All ships, open fire. Destroy the human fleet. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 200 Zetherian warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams that could melt asteroids into vapor. Quantum torpedoes that could phase through any known defense and tear apart matter at the molecular level. Gravity missiles that could compress titanium armor into dense pellets. The combined firepower of the Ninth Fleet lit up space like a newborn star, enough destructive energy to crack a planet's crust or boil away an ocean. Every weapon designed by 3 centuries of military advancement, all focused on 43 primitive human vessels. The beams reached the human flagship, the modest vessel called U.S. Indomitable, and then something impossible happened. The weapons stopped. All of them. Every energy beam, every quantum torpedo, every gravity missile simply vanished as if they had never existed. Not absorbed, not deflected, not scattered, completely erased from reality the moment they came within range of the human ships. On his screen, Admiral Chen smiled again. Admiral Xander, you just made a very poor decision. Now let me show you what human weapons actually look like. Xander stared at his tactical displays, his mind struggling to process readings that made no sense. His entire fleet had just fired enough energy to destroy a small moon, and the human ships hadn't even been scratched. Every weapon had simply ceased to exist, for the first time in 3 centuries of military service. Admiral Xander felt genuine fear. Admiral Xander stared at his tactical displays in complete disbelief. The readings violated every law of physics he understood. His entire fleet had just fired enough destructive energy to crack a planet's crust, and the human ships showed 0 damage. Every quantum torpedo, every gravity missile, every energy beam had simply vanished before impact. Damage report, he barked at his sensor officer, though he already knew the impossible answer. Sir, I'm reading massive energy distortions around the human vessels, the officer replied, his voice shaking. It's like they're surrounded by some kind of field that completely destroys incoming attacks at the quantum level. Impossible, Xander muttered. No known technology can simply eliminate weapons fire. Admiral, the weapons officer called out, the humans are returning fire. On the main tactical display, Xander watched as the human fleet launched what appeared to be simple missiles. Compared to Zetherian quantum weapons, they moved almost lazily through space. Slow. Primitive projectiles that his ship's defensive systems should intercept icily. There were only a few dozen of them. Nothing that should threaten vessels protected by energy shields that could deflect meteor impacts. Defensive systems online, he ordered. Those missiles won't even scratch our hulls. But as he watched, something deeply disturbing happened. The first human missile reached the dreadnought Conqueror, one of his most powerful warships. Instead of exploding against the energy shields in a brilliant flash, the missile passed right through them as if they were made of empty space. It struck the hull with no visible explosion, no dramatic fireball, nothing that suggested a conventional weapon. The impact looked almost gentle, like someone tossing a pebble at a mountain dot. Then the Conqueror went dark. Every light on the massive warship died simultaneously. The engine glow that had burned for decades flickered out. Weapon systems powered down. In seconds, the mighty dreadnought became nothing more than a dead chunk of metal drifting silently through space. Conqueror, report, Xander shouted into his communicator. Static answered him. Sir, his communications officer said voice tight. With confusion, I'm detecting life signs aboard the Conqueror, but no power readings at all. It's like their entire energy grid just ... More human missiles were reaching his ships now, each one behaving the same terrifying way, passing through shields like they didn't exist. striking with gentle impacts that somehow caused total system failure. The destroyer's swift death was hit next, suffering the same fate as Conqueror. Complete power loss, total system shutdown. How are they doing this? Xander demanded. Unknown, sir, his science officer replied, frantically consulting displays that showed readings beyond their understanding. The missiles appear to disrupt quantum energy fields at the molecular level. I've never seen anything like it. All ships evasive maneuvers, Xander commanded. Don't let those weapons hit you. But the human weapons weren't finished, surprising him. As he watched in growing horror, a second wave of missiles launched from the human fleet. These glowed with a strange blue light that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. The first one struck the heavy cruiser, Dominator. What happened next would haunt Xander for the rest of his life. The Dominator began to age rapidly. The hull, which had been pristine military-grade alloy moments before, started to rust and corrode before his eyes. Sections began to crack and fall away as if the ship was thousands of years old instead of recently constructed. The crew's panic-filled transmissions grew weaker and more confused as they aged decades and minutes. By the Emperor's blood, Xander whispered, they're weaponizing time itself. A third wave of human missiles launched, these glowing with soft, white light that seemed somehow more terrifying than the others. When they struck their targets, something even worse happened than aging or power loss. The battleship Eternal Glory was hit by one of these new weapons, and a perfect sphere of absolute nothingness appeared in its center. The matter that had been there, hull plating, internal systems, crew members, simply ceased to exist, leaving a hole that went completely through the ship from one side to the other. Matter conversion weapons, his science officer said in a horrified whisper. They're turning our ship's atoms into pure energy. Xander's fleet was dying around him, but not in glorious battle, as Zetherian warriors were supposed to die. They were being methodically neutralized by weapons that operated outside the boundaries of known science. Some ships went dark and lifeless. Others aged into scrap metal in minutes. Still others had pieces of themselves simply deleted from reality. All ships scatter formation, Xander ordered desperately. Break apart and engage at maximum range. It didn't matter. The human weapons seemed to ignore distance, defensive shields, and armor plating equally. The dreadnought Infinite Power tried to escape by jumping to faster than light speed, but a human missile caught it mid-transition. The ship began appearing and disappearing in flashes, caught between dimensions, until it finally tore itself apart in a cascade of twisted metal and energy discharge. Sir, his tactical officer reported, with barely controlled panic, we've lost 60% of the fleet. The humans haven't even been scratched. Xander looked at his displays showing the battle, though it wasn't really a battle at all. It was a systematic execution. His mighty Ninth Fleet, conqueror of worlds, was being casually destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist. Admiral, the communications officer said, we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen again. He looked calm, almost sad, like someone forced to discipline a misbehaving child. Admiral Xander Chen said quietly, I'm going to offer you something we've never offered to an aggressive species before. Surrender now, and we'll stop firing. Your surviving crews will be rescued and treated well. You have my word on that. Treated well? Xander couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're destroying my fleet. We're disabling your fleet, Chen corrected gently. If we wanted to destroy it, you'd all be dead already. These are our non-lethal weapons, Admiral. Non-lethal. Xander stared at the screen as another of his ships aged into twisted scrap metal. My vessels are being torn apart. Your ships are being neutralized, Chen said patiently. Most of your crews are still alive. The time dilation weapons are set to non-fatal aging rates. The matter converters are targeting empty hull sections. We're trying very hard not to kill anyone. Xander felt his understanding of reality crumble around him. Non-lethal weapons. The humans were destroying the most powerful fleet in the galaxy with weapons they considered non-lethal. What are your lethal weapons like? He asked in a whisper. Chen's expression grew very serious. You don't want to find out, Admiral. Please, order your ships to surrender. We can stop this right now. Captain Velter had commanded the Dreadnought Sovereign for 15 years. He had seen battles across 7 star systems, watched worlds burn under Zetherian might, and witnessed civilizations fall before the Empire's unstoppable advance. But nothing in his experience had prepared him for waking up in a human medical bay. The room was impossibly clean and white, with soft lighting that didn't hurt his eyes, despite his species' sensitivity to bright illumination. Velter lay on a comfortable bed, not a military cot or prisoner restraint, but an actual bed with soft coverings. Machines he didn't recognize hummed quietly beside him, monitoring his vital signs with technology that seemed both primitive and somehow more advanced than anything he'd seen. A human female in a white coat was checking readings on a display. Beside his bed, when she noticed he was awake, she smiled, actually smiled at him. "Good, you're conscious," she said, in perfect Zetherian. "How are you feeling, Captain?" Velter tried to sit up, then stopped as pain shot through his chest. "Where am I? What happened to my ship?" "You're aboard the U.S. Mercy," the human said calmly. "I'm Dr. Sarah Kim. Your ship was caught in a quantum cascade when our weapons disabled your power core. You received a dangerous dose of radiation exposure, but you're going to be fine." Velto stared at her in confusion. "You're treating me. Why?" Dr. Kim looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Because you're injured. That's what doctors do, Captain. We treat injured people, but I'm your enemy." "No," Dr. Kim said quietly. "You're a person who made some poor choices. That's very different." Velter tried to process this concept. In the Zetherian Empire, captured enemies were either executed immediately or enslaved for the remainder of their lives. They were never given medical treatment better than what they would receive in their own military hospitals. "My crew," he said urgently. "What happened to my crew?" "Most of them are fine," Dr. Kim assured him. "We evacuated everyone from ships that were too badly damaged to support life. Your people are being housed on several of our vessels while we figure out the logistics of getting you home safely." Home. Velter couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're sending us home, of course. Where else would we send you?" Before Velter could answer, the door opened and another human entered. This one wore a military uniform, and Velter recognized him from the battle transmissions Admiral Chen, the human fleet commander who had somehow destroyed the mighty Ninth Fleet in less than an hour. Captain Chen said, nodding politely, "I'm glad to see you're recovering. I wanted to speak with you about the battle." Velter tensed. Now the interrogation would begin. The humans would want to know about Zetherian military secrets, fleet positions, weaknesses they could exploit for future attacks, standard procedure for any victorious force. "I will tell you nothing," Velter said defiantly. Chen looked puzzled. "I'm not here to interrogate you, Captain. I wanted to apologize." "Apologize. Our weapons caused more damage than we intended," Chen explained. "We're still learning how to calibrate them against ships with your technology level. Several of your crew members were hurt when your power core overloaded. That wasn't supposed to happen." Veltar stared at the human admiral. "You're apologizing for not destroying us efficiently enough." "I'm apologizing for not protecting your people during the battle," Chen said. "We take full responsibility for any casualties among your crews. This was impossible." Velter had participated in dozens of battles across his military career. Victorious, armies didn't apologize to their defeated enemies. They celebrated. They demanded information. They imposed harsh terms and extracted tribute. They didn't express regret about enemy casualties. "I don't understand," Velter said slowly. "You won. We lost. Why are you treating us like honored guests instead of prisoners?" Chen pulled up a chair and sat down beside the bed, a gesture so casual and non-threatening that it confused Velter even more. "Captain, can I ask you something? In all the worlds your empire has conquered, how many of them actually attacked you first?" Velter thought about it. "None. We always strike first. It's more efficient." "And how many of those worlds had done anything to harm your people?" "Harm us?" Veltar was confused. "They didn't need to harm us. They had resources we needed. Territory. We wanted, so you attacked innocent civilizations and enslaved or killed their people because it was convenient." "It's not personal," Velter said defensively. "It's just how the empire works. The strong rule the weak. That's natural law." Chen was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made Velter pay attention. "Captain, let me tell you something about humanity. For most of our history, we believed the same thing. The strong conquered the weak. Might made right. We fought wars constantly, enslaved each other, committed terrible atrocities because we thought it. It was natural. What changed? Velter asked, genuinely curious despite himself. We grew up, Chen said simply. We realized that just because you can hurt someone doesn't mean you should. We learned that strength without compassion is just brutality, and we decided we wanted to be better than that. Dr. Kim spoke up from where she was updating his medical chart. Captain, can I ask you something? Do you have a family back home? Velter regarded her suspiciously. Why do you want to know? I'm just curious, Dr. Kim said. I have a family too, a husband and a daughter. Velter studied her face. She seemed genuinely interested, not like someone trying to extract strategic information. My mate is called Silwen, he said cautiously. My offspring are Turvel and Kanara. Those are beautiful names, Dr. Kim said warmly. How old are your children? Turvel is 23 standard years. Kinara is 18. Do they serve in the military? Turvel does. He's a weapons officer on a destroyer in the 7th Fleet. Kanara is still in the academy. Dr. Kim nodded. I bet they're worried about you right now. We should send them a message letting them know you're safe. Velter felt something twist in his chest. You would do that? Of course. No one should have to worry about their family. Over the next few days, Velter talked with many humans. He expected propaganda, attempts to convert him to their cause, or at least some kind of recruitment effort to turn him against his own empire. Instead, they just talked to him like a person. They asked about his homeworld, his family, his interests. Outside military service, they shared stories about their own lives, their own families. Dr. Kim told him about her daughter who wanted to be a scientist. Admiral Chen talked about his wife who taught children back on Earth. A young human engineer named Marcus showed him pictures of his newborn son. It was during one of these conversations that Velter finally asked the question that had been bothering him since he woke up. Why are you doing this? He said to Dr. Kim. Why are you being kind to us? What do you mean? We came here to conquer your world. We would have enslaved your people, killed anyone who resisted, and you're treating us like honored guests? Why? Dr. Kim was quiet for a moment. Captain, do you know what we learned when we started monitoring galactic civilization? What? We learned that most species are good people trapped in bad systems. Your empire tells you that conquest is natural, that might makes right, that the strong should rule the weak. But that's not who you really are. She gestured to the medical bay around them. Look at how you've reacted to our kindness. You're not angry or plotting revenge. You're confused because this is how you think people should treat each other. But it's not how you've been taught to behave. Velter considered this. It was true. The human's kindness felt right in a way that Empire doctrine never had. What happens now? He asked. Now we take you home, Dr. Kim said. All of you. We'll repair what ships we can and provide transport for those we can't. You'll get to see your family again. And then you decide what kind of person you want to be. Empire will probably tell you that humans are weak, that our compassion is a flaw to be exploited. But you'll know better. You'll know that we could have killed all of you in seconds, but we chose not to. You'll know that we treated you with kindness when we could have treated you with cruelty. That night, as Velter lay in his comfortable bed aboard the human ship, he stared out at the stars and thought about everything he had learned. The humans could have destroyed the 9th Fleet completely. They could have killed every in the system. Instead, they had shown mercy to their enemies and kindness to their prisoners. For the first time in his life, Captain Velter began to wonder if the Zetherian Empire was wrong about everything. Emperor Xanthok sat on his crystal throne in the great palace of Zephyr Prime, listening to reports that shattered every assumption about galactic power. The 9th Fleet destroyed Admiral Xander, humiliated. 200 warships reduced to floating scrap by a species that had barely achieved faster-than-light travel a century ago. Impossible, he declared, his voice echoing through the throne room's crystalline walls. The survivors are lying to cover their cowardice. High Admiral Kethson, commander of all Zetherian military forces, stood before the throne with an expression of grim certainty. Your Imperial Majesty, I've personally interviewed dozens of survivors. Their stories are consistent across every detail. The humans have weapons beyond our understanding. Beyond our understanding. The Emperor's eyes blazed. With fury, we are the masters of 7 star systems. We have conquered 47 worlds. Some upstart species from a backwater planet cannot have superior technology. Nevertheless, Majesty, the evidence suggests cowardice, and incompetence. Zonthok slammed his fist on the crystalline arm of his throne, sending fractures through the ancient structure. Summon Admiral Veldar. Have him take the home fleet to this Earth and finish what Xander failed to accomplish. Kethson, who had served the Empire for over 2 centuries, stepped forward with unusual boldness. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider negotiation instead of negotiation. The Emperor's voice rose to a roar that made the palace walls vibrate. The Zetherian Empire does not negotiate with primitives, we conquer them. 3 hours later, the home fleet departed Zephyr Prime. 3,000 ships, every dreadnought, every battleship, every weapon of war the Empire possessed. If the humans had somehow defeated the Ninth Fleet through luck or trickery, they would find the home fleet a very different opponent. Admiral Veldar commanded from the bridge of the super dreadnought Infinite Emperor, a vessel, its own manufacturing facilities, and could construct smaller warships during extended campaigns. Unlike Xander, he was taking no chances. His ships would attack from maximum range, target the human planet directly, and end this embarrassment to Imperial prestige immediately. The journey to Earth took 6 days at maximum faster-than-light speed. As they approached the Sol system, Veldar's sensors detected something that made his blood freeze in his veins. A single human ship was waiting for them, one modest vessel against the entire home fleet, 3,000 ships representing the accumulated military might of 7 star systems. Sir, his communications officer reported, the human ship is transmitting. Put it through. The main screen showed a familiar face, Secretary General Martinez, the human leader, who had refused their original ultimatum. She was sitting in what appeared to be a simple office, looking as calm as if she were discussing trade agreements instead of facing the largest military force ever assembled. Greetings, Admiral, she said pleasantly. I'm Secretary General Martinez of the United Earth Defense Council. Welcome to our system. I am Admiral Veldar of the Zetherian Home Fleet, he replied, trying to project authority despite his growing unease. I'm here to complete the conquest that the Ninth Fleet failed to accomplish. Martinez nodded. Yes, we heard about what happened to Admiral Xander's ships. Tragic, really. So many lives disrupted because of a simple misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? You seem to think we're enemies, Martinez said. We're not. We're here to help you. Veldar laughed harshly. Help us. You destroyed our fleet. We disabled your fleet, Martinez corrected gently, and then we provided medical care, comfortable quarters, and safe transport home for all survivors. Is that how enemies treat each other in your empire? This gave Veldar pause. The reports from Ninth Fleet survivors had mentioned the humans' strange kindness, but he had assumed it was propaganda or psychological warfare. He asked. We want to return your people, Martinez said. All the survivors from the Ninth Fleet are aboard my ship. We also want to discuss the terms of your empire's immediate cessation of aggressive expansion and the liberation of all enslaved worlds. Veldar stared at the screen. You want us to surrender to you? We want you to stop hurting innocent people, Martinez said. The galaxy is big enough for everyone, Admiral. There's no need for conquest and slavery. The strong rule the weak, Veldar said automatically. That is natural law. No, Martinez said quietly. That's what bullies tell themselves to justify their cruelty. The truly strong protect those who need protection. Enough talk, Veldar declared, though his voice lacked conviction. You have 1 human ship against 3,000 Zetherian warships. Surrender now or be destroyed. Martinez sighed. Admiral, I'm going to show you something. Please pay attention. On Veldar's tactical display, every ship in his fleet suddenly went dark for exactly 60 seconds. All power, all weapons, all life support systems simply stopped functioning. Then, just as suddenly, everything came back online. How? Veldar whispered. Admiral Martinez said, what you just experienced was a demonstration. We could have left your ships powerless permanently. We could have disabled your life support systems forever. We could have done much worse things. But we didn't, because we're not your enemies. Veldar looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their instruments in shock and terror. The humans had just demonstrated that they could disable his entire fleet without firing a single shot. What are you? He asked in a voice barely above a whisper. We're the species that's been watching your empire commit atrocities for 40 years, Martinez replied. We're the people who decided that enough was enough, and we're the civilization. That's going to ensure you never hurt anyone again. You can't stop the Empire, Veldar said, but his voice carried no conviction. Admiral, we just disabled your entire fleet with a single ship. How many fleets do you think we'd need to disable your Empire? The answer was obvious and terrifying. If the humans could do this to 3,000 ships, they could do it to 30,000 or 3 million. What do you want from us? Veldar asked quietly. Peace, Martinez said. Real peace. Not the peace of conquest, but the peace of cooperation. You have a choice, Admiral. Return home and convince your Emperor to negotiate, or watch your Empire crumble as we systematically disable every aggressive fleet you send. And if we choose to negotiate, then we help you become the civilization you could be instead of the one you are. We share technology, knowledge, resources. We help you build a society based on cooperation instead of domination. Veldar thought about the survivor reports, humans showing kindness to their enemies, mercy to their captives. They had treated wounded Zetherians with the same care they gave their own people. How do I know you're telling the truth? He asked. Because Admiral Martinez said, with absolute certainty, if we wanted to destroy you, you'd already be dead. 2 days later, Veldar stood once again before the Crystal Throne, but this time he was not alone. Captain Velter and dozens of other survivors from the Ninth Fleet stood with him. Together, they told their Emperor the truth about humanity. They could have killed us all, Velter said. Every ship, every crew member. Instead, they saved our lives and sent us home. They have weapons that make our technology look like children's toys, added Commander Kethron. But they used the weakest ones they possessed. They were trying not to hurt us. Emperor Zonthok listened in growing disbelief. Finally, he stood. From his throne, his eyes blazing with fury. Lies, he shouted. All lies. No species is that powerful. No civilization is that merciful. Your Majesty, Veldar said quietly, what if they are? The question hung in the air like a challenge. What if humanity really was everything the survivors claimed? What if the Zetherian Empire, for all its might and pride, was nothing more than a galactic bully faced with someone truly strong? Majesty, High Admiral, Kethson spoke up. We have a choice. We can continue our expansion and face whatever weapons the humans haven't shown us yet. Or we can consider their offer of negotiation. The Zetherian Empire does not negotiate, Zonthok declared. Then the Zetherian Empire will fall, Velter said simply, because the humans aren't going to let us continue enslaving innocent worlds, and we cannot stop them. For the first time in his long reign, Emperor Zonthok felt something he had never experienced before, genuine fear, not of death or defeat, but of facing an opponent who was truly superior in every way that mattered. What do they want? He asked quietly. The end of conquest, the freedom of enslaved worlds, a chance for the Empire to become something better. And if we refuse, Velter thought of Admiral Chen's calm confidence, of Dr. Kim's gentle kindness, of the human engineer who had shown him pictures of his baby son. Then we learn what their real weapons look like, he said, and I don't think any of us want that.